Hello, and welcome to Perfectly Seasoned, the podcast about all things culinary. I'm personal chef Greg Strom.
And I'm Cynthia Malone.
We're in a bit of a pickle this week. We'll explain. Stay tuned. Hello, Cynthia.
Hi, Greg.
Well, it's nice to be back after a couple of weeks off.
It is so nice to be back in the podcast world.
Well, today I want to talk about my latest obsession.
Oh, dear. What is that?
Pickling. Pickled vegetables, their uses, and how easy it is to make them.
Okay, I cannot wait to hear. I haven't pickled anything in quite some time, but there's so many benefits.
There are, and you can pickle pretty much anything. In fact, I've been noted to be pickled at times. So, So let's start with the actual definition. This is from the Encyclopedia of Food and Health, which, by the way, is a very interesting publication you can get online.
I bet.
So I recommend it for some light reading. But pickling is a process of preserving edible products in an acidic solution, usually vinegar, or salt in a solution of brine.
Okay.
And the process of pickling is also known as brining, and you can do that with a turkey. You can do, other things. But the resulting food from pickling is what we call pickles.
Oh, pickles. I don't like pickles, and I know you do.
Tim and I love pickles. We can never have too many pickles. He said, don't forget to buy the dill pickles today.
They are very popular. They're like a staple at any picnic or sandwich shop. I mean, Americans are pickle crazy.
Yeah. Well, actually, turns out so are Canadians. But that's a whole nother podcast. But usually pickles refer to vegetables or products from the garden. But sometimes it can be other things like fish, eggs, pickled eggs. I mean, you can buy them pickled. Meats, for example, they're also subject to being able to be pickled. But
okay.
Not so much a fan of pickled meats, to be honest with you. Now, I will admit that I do like pickled herring, which is...
Oh.
Yeah, I guess that's my only pickled protein. But today I want to focus on my new obsession, which is just pickled vegetables.
Delicious.
And most vegetables can be preserved by pickling, which... a lot of people who have gardens, I know growing up, my grandmother, they were on the farm, so they had to can and preserve and pickle things at the end of the summer so that they had food through the winter. So pickling is just basically preserving food for a later time. And,
so do you know where this originated?
Well, rumor has it, it's likely, air quotes, it says likely. No one's been able to prove it, but it's likely first originated in India around 2400 BCE. Now, I had to figure out what that meant because I'm used to seeing BC, which we all know is before Christ, and AD,
right,
which is Ade Dominum, which is after Christ. So, but BCE stands for before the Common Era. BCE, before the Common Era.
Oh, so, I'm thinking of before the Corona era. Before Corona.
That's even better.
And after Corona, whenever that happens.
I like that one much better. I think I might use that from now on. In 2020, or in 2019 BCE.
Before the Corona era. I don't even remember what that was like.
Exactly. But according to the New York Food Museum, can you believe there's actually a food museum in New York? There's actually two, I found out.
Two? But are they pickling museums?
One of them is.
Wow.
Pickling the history. They have a section just for pickling history.
Wow.
Who
Okay.
knew? Um, so in that section, they had archaeological evidence of cucumbers native to India being pickled and exported to the Tigris Valley of Iraq as early as 2030 BCE.
Wow.
So
Well, that makes sense when it comes to preserving back then. I mean, of course, pickling makes sense.
well, yeah, but you always wondered back then, how did they keep food from spoiling?
Right.
But I guess you just always take for granted that somehow they did, but not how they did it. So it was just used as a way to preserve food for out of season use. Especially also on long journeys, and most especially when they started sailing, traveling by sea, because, for example, salt pork and salt beef were very common staples for sailors before the days of steam engines, because there was no refrigeration. So how would
wow, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I somehow I just don't think I'd want to eat on a long voyage like that from back in those days.
No, it doesn't sound that appealing.
Especially
really.
you, since you don't eat meat, so even less appealing. But although the process invented to preserve food was called pickling, they were also made just to be eaten because people enjoy the results of the flavors that are in pickles.
Oh, yeah.
That's why no two dill pickles taste alike, because of the pickling spices that are used. You can look. I've become acutely aware of this since I'm going on my pickling binge. I look
Yeah,
at,
what are pickling spices? I've never heard of this.
well, pickling spices are a combination of herbs. Well, mostly seeds. For example, you can use peppercorns, allspice,
cool.
whole allspice, juniper berries. Those are in pickling spices. Crushed bay leaf, things like that, and cumin seeds. All of these things, each one of these things by itself gives you a flavor, but the combination of all of them in pickling spices will give you a completely different taste of whatever it is you're pickling. So you might use a simple recipe of vinegar, sugar, salt, and peppercorns to pickle a red onion. Or if you want to knock that up a notch, add some allspice berries and some cumin seed and some mustard seed and a bay leaf, and let it marinate basically overnight, and you have fantastic pickled onions.
Pickled onions, you're making me hungry. Those are my favorite.
Well, pickled vegetables have become so popular as condiments and garnishes in restaurants. I mean, when's the last time you've gone to a restaurant and they set a plate in front of you and it didn't have something pickled on it? I mean, it's hard.
I mean, it's tough, especially with charcuterie boards.
Yeah.
I mean, there's usually always something pickled, as there should be, right?
Yes, yeah, and they go pickled vegetables go really well. They match very well with things on a charcuterie board. I know.
Speaking of, reference our
oh yes,
our podcast
yes.
a few episodes back on how to build a charcuterie board.
Yeah, yeah, and the thing is, you don't have to go to a tremendous amount of expense or have any kind of special equipment to make these pickled vegetables. I mean, you only need a quart jar, and it doesn't have to be glass. They don't have to be boiled unless you're going to can them for months down the road, but they'll keep in your refrigerator for up to 3 weeks just making them, and you can use them almost immediately.
That's so easy.
A good pickled ramps, for example, they all brighten the flavors and heighten the taste of a dish without you realizing it. Because have you ever made a dish and it's perfectly seasoned with salt and pepper and whatever herbs or spices, and it just tastes a little flat and it just needs a bump?
Yeah, of course.
What you can do is you can use a couple splashes of vinegar, which you cannot taste in the recipe, and I guarantee you that it will bump the taste up. And it's just because of the vinegar and its proponents and what it does. Like a good pickle,
it's a neat trick.
It is, and it heightens the taste, and it hits the 5 basic tastes. Sweet, salty, bitter, sour, umami, which I still have not really quite understood, but I know it's one of them. But it helps lighten the flavor, and it heightens the dish, and it doesn't change the taste of the dish other than just enlightening the flavor. This is achieved by using things like fresh dill, mustard, fennel, coriander seeds, and other spices. Oh,
fennel, yes.
Yeah. And you don't need to overwhelm it. It just takes, like a half a teaspoon in the vinegar, and
a little goes a long way.
Yes, it does. And the easiest thing how to explain how to do this is when let's say, for example, everybody knows about how large a red onion is. 1 onion makes a quart of pickled onions, and all you do is slice them thinly, and you just have to make a combination of vinegar and sugar and some water to cut the vinegar.
Right.
And peppercorns, and that's it. And you bring that to a boil. That's the basic recipe. And you pour it over the onions in the container, and you let it sit for an hour, cover it, and refrigerate it, and they'll be ready to eat like in a couple of hours. And
that's amazing. I think you're going to have everyone pickling now this week, knowing how easy it is.
It's my new thing. And the reason it came about is because a couple of weeks ago, we were planning to have a very intimate dinner party with 4 of the group of 8 in our COVID social group that where we know where we've all been, and to have for just a dinner party because we hadn't seen them for a while. And so I have a vendor that provides miniature vegetables and edible flowers. And so I ordered some, and at the last minute we had to cancel. So I had all of these things. I thought, what am I going to do? So I thought, you know what? I'm going to try to pickle them and see what happens. So naturally I go on my teacher, YouTube, and I found pickling recipes. And so I thought, I'm going to give it a shot. Oh my God. It changed my life. I cannot believe it. So that's all I've been doing now. I pickled. I also bought ramps. They sent me from my mushroom vendor out in Oregon, and she sent me as a thank you. She sent me 1 pound of ramp bulbs, which it was the end of the season. Ramps are only in for like 5 weeks, and that's about it. So I thought, oh gosh, what am I going to do with a pound of ramps? So I thought I'm going to pickle them. And oh my God, are they fantastic. So I'm going to include all these recipes on the website so people can try it. But I'm going to play with the different brines. To each time I pickle onions now, I'm going to try it a different way. And I can't wait to try some of the things that I haven't pickled that can be pickled. For example, have you ever had pickled fruit?
I'm not sure. I feel like I've had pickled pears, which are phenomenal.
Well, I have had pickled strawberries once and pickled blueberries. Oh, yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm. And I had them, they were served at a restaurant. There was like a teaspoonful of pickled blueberries over vanilla ice cream. And
that sounds great.
It was a little unusual, but I thought, I'll try it. It was phenomenal. The tartness of the pickled blueberry was so delicious with the sweetness of the vanilla ice cream.
No, that sounds perfect. I like those combo. I can't usually handle anything that's just sweet. I like a little salty or a little sour in there, so that would be perfect for me. Sounds great.
Yeah, and then there's other things that you can pickle, like which I'm not exactly sure what I'd use them for, but I would try and just to see what they taste like, and that's grapes. I mean, people
Oh,
pickle grapes. I'm not sure.
I'd put those in a salad, like a warm
Oh, yeah.
salad even. That could be good.
I'd have to try that and see. But one of the things that I am going to try, and I've had growing up, one of my aunts used to can and pickle watermelon rind as a pickle.
Oh,
And
that sounds great.
it's actually quite delicious. You can pickle the fruit itself, the flesh of the fruit, or you can peel the rind, cut it up, and pickle the rind. And two completely different flavor profiles.
Right.
And I know you say you don't like pickles, but
Yeah.
you would. I think you might like the watermelon rind, but technically speaking, you have eaten pickles, because if you've had pickled vegetables,
Yes, which I eat kimchi once a week, and that falls into that category, doesn't it?
hello. So you're not a pickle hater. You do eat pickles, whether you
Right.
like to admit it or
Just
not.
not of the cucumber variety.
But like I said, it's such a simple process, and I was so afraid of it. And I guess it's because, like I said, my grandmother used to have like all of these jars when it came pickling time, and she had these huge water bath, and everything had to be. Oh, it was like I just had these. So, but I found out, if you're only going to pickle a couple of onions or some vegetables or some fruit or something, you don't need to go to all of that expense. You can just do it with what you have.
Oh, sure.
And they keep, for the most part, up to about 3 weeks in the refrigerator if you're not canning them, which is a separate process, but also equally as simple. If you are canning, what you need to do, let's say that you're pickled ramps, which I canned because I had a pound of them, and I got 2-pint jars, so I only had to put 2-pint jars in a water bath, bring it to a boil for 10 minutes, take them out and let them sit, and then you hear this like a little pop, and what that tells you is the vacuum. As they cool, it forms a vacuum on the inside of the jar. And so when you hear that, they're totally in an anaerobic atmosphere, and there's no bacteria that grows in there. And they can be held once they're at room temperature. You can put them in the pantry. They don't have to be refrigerated, and they'll stay for up to a year. But anything that you pickle and you're not canning, it's good for about 3 weeks. So. Because after that, they start to lose their flavor. I find actually after about a week, the pickled onions kind of lose their taste. So, but I've made a lot of them, so I've tried it. In 3 weeks, they'll keep up to 3 weeks. But if you have to keep them in your refrigerator for 3 weeks, you're not eating them enough. That's all you can use them on anything. They're great on a grilled cheese sandwich. They're great on a burger. You can use them on fish tacos. You can
eat them by themselves.
Yeah, you can. You can. And last night when we had our friends over.
Yeah.
I did fish tacos, and I used
my favorite.
I used the pickled onions and a couple of the pickled miniature vegetables as garnish, and wow, that's all I can say is wow, because it really made the taco, it just gave it a whole different
Just
taste.
when I thought Greg Strom couldn't top himself, and then you go and do it.
Well, it was kind of I will be honest, I mean, I'd never had pickled onions on a fish taco because I never was much of a fish taco fan. But because we eat a lot of grouper and Tim doesn't eat meat, I thought, well, I got into, I said, well, maybe if I make my own fish tacos, I'll enjoy them.
Right.
So
and did you?
I do. I use grouper, and I would also, now I'm going to branch out and try salmon. And
Oh, yes. Actually, this is getting a little off the pickling topic because, okay, I actually made an ahi tuna taco the other day. I lightly seared it, rolled it in some spice, sliced it up. And that was amazing.
I could go for that. I would definitely try that.
And if I don't use that, I use mahi mahi, which is great because it's nice and thick to put in the taco as well.
Yeah, I find though that the mahi has to be super, super fresh. Much more so than grouper. Grouper can be, maybe a day old, but mahi has to be eaten as soon as it comes off the hook, in my estimation. It can be tends to be a little bit on the strong side sometimes. So, but anyway, back to pickling, my new obsession. One of the things that is interesting about the pickling spices is how the spices themselves can be altered to change the flavor of whatever it is you're pickling. Growing up, of German descent, we used to eat sauerbraten, which is nothing more than German pot roast.
Sounds fancier in German.
It does, but it's just pot roast. The thing is, before it's made, you have to soak the beef in pickling spices for 48 hours. And that infuses the flavor of all of these things in the pickling spice, which pickling spice, this particular pickling spice for sauerbraten has all kinds of different things in it, including juniper berries. So
that's interesting.
It gives a very specific taste. And so you can make your own pickling spices depending on what your tastes are. If you want certain vegetables to taste different from other pickled vegetables, all you have to do is vary the spices that you use, because the basic thing is the liquid, and that is vinegar and a little water and sugar. Those are the two common things that all pickling spices, pickling brines have. Everything else is a matter of taste, and you can be as creative as you wish. And you had said that you had pickled pears. I've never had a pickled pear, but I saw a recipe for pickled pears, and they're serving them with an arugula salad, which sounds intriguing.
Oh, yes, that sounds amazing.
The difference between the peppery flavor of the arugula salad and the pear, the sweetness and the bitterness of the pear from being pickled, seems like that would be like a perfect marriage.
That sounds so good. And then add a little goat cheese in there, which is my favorite, and I feel goes with everything.
If it doesn't have goat cheese on it, there's no point. There's no point. One of the most intriguing fruits that I want to try. Do you eat Thai food? Do you like Thai?
Love Thai food.
Okay. I really like Thai food. I don't like the really hot Thai food because I'm a firm believer in food not being painful. But Thai food, when it's properly spiced, for my taste, I absolutely adore it. And I saw pickled pineapple chunks could be used in a Thai stir fry. Now that intrigues me, and I'm going to have to try that.
Well, I have had pineapple fried rice, and I don't believe it is pickled. I think it's grilled, which I love grilled pineapple, but you could probably either kick up the heat with that pickled pineapple if you put like red pepper flakes, chili pepper flakes in there, or keep it mild to balance out the heat in the dish.
Well, I'm proposing a throwdown here.
Oh, a throwdown, okay.
I would like you to research on your own, and I'll research on my own, a recipe for pickled pineapple chunks.
Okay.
And then we'll each prepare them, and we're going to have to can it so that we can send it to each other. And then I'll send you my sample, and you send me your sample, and we'll actually compare them and see what happens with a Thai stir fry.
Ooh, delicious. Deal. I'm in.
So I'll research that, and we'll keep the listeners cued in as to when this is going to happen.
Perfect.
So what are some of the ideas that you have for pickled vegetables or fruits that you've
Well, yeah, so something that I really love, and I only love this particular food pickled, is ginger. I love ginger with my sushi. I'll eat pickled ginger on its own, and it's surprisingly very easy to make. Now, it's preferred to use young ginger, which not a lot of people know about, and it's usually only found in international food stores. So I do use mature ginger, or that yellow ginger that we see in stores. You can do that, and what you do is you just use radish if you want it to have that pink color. Sometimes it doesn't, and that's optional. You use rice vinegar, a cup of water, and 1.5 tablespoons of granulated sugar if you want a little bit of sweetness. And you just kind of peel with a mandolin or just a peeler that ginger into really thin little strips. And it's so good.
Well, yeah, I like the idea of the rice vinegar because it's much milder than white vinegar.
And so you're not going to really have that briny taste that, you would get otherwise. It's very light, and the focus is all on the ginger flavor itself.
Well, I have a question about using the ginger that you get from the regular produce department in the store. I find I do use it, and I usually grate it because it's so stringy. Because if you look at the ginger that comes with the sushi, it's so smooth and it's almost transparent. It's very translucent, and it doesn't have any stringiness of the regular ginger. How do you? Right.
Well, the young ginger has a naturally pink pigment, and it's a lot softer. So then when you get the mature ginger, it is tougher, it's more fiery. So you're supposed to cook it lightly or cure it with salt before pickling. So you slice it up, and then you toss it with kosher salt and let it sit for 30 minutes, and that softens it up. So you get on the inside of that ginger, and you can peel it out with a spoon or a little slicer into those thin strips. So the effect will be the same, but it is a little bit tougher to get to or to work on at first.
Yeah, it seems the regular ginger seems more fibrous. Maybe it's because it's matured. I don't know. But how thin do you need to make? It has to be really, really thin?
It has to be pretty thin. Like I have a little handheld peeler, and I'll just take off like the brown, the woody part, and get that flesh. And then I just kind of scrape it off. Like, if you use a mandolin and you were slicing pretty thin, that's kind of the thinness that you want to go for.
Will you send me that? I'll put that recipe up also on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll have to try that because we love pickled ginger. We usually, whenever we go out for sushi, we always order, just ask them to bring extra because it's just good by itself. So
it is.
If you have any questions about today's topic, I've posted some informative links on my website, thesilverchef.net, and there you can also listen and subscribe to the podcast.
And give us a rating.
Yes, please.
Only if it's 5 stars, of course.
Yes, 5 stars. I'll accept a 4, but...
Okay, well, sure.
But
I'll allow it.
The podcasts are also available on iTunes and Spotify. And, of course, you really need to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Perfectly Seasoned Cooking Boot Camp. And you can follow Cynthia on Instagram at...
The Little Spoon.
And here's another throwdown. I'm getting ready to start doing a couple more YouTube cooking boot camp videos. But at some point in the next year, hopefully, we'll be able to travel. And you have an open invitation to come to stay in the Cynthia Malone suite at our house. And we're going to do an episode of Perfectly Seasoned Cooking Boot Camp.
Amazing.
And it'll be a recipe of your choice.
Perfect. I can't wait.
Well, thanks everybody for listening. This is Greg Strom.
And Cynthia Malone.
Hoping all your days will be perfectly seasoned.